What's up, everybody? Good morning. This is Zach, and welcome to another episode of the Launch Podcast. Today's episode is with yoga instructor Shannon Crow and co-founder of yoga studio OutHere Yoga in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. When I first got back to Steamboat just about a month ago, I dropped in on one of these classes, and I could just not believe the energy and the community that existed within this studio. And I also just had incredible results on releasing the hip tension that I had from running all of last year. So I was just amazed. I had to talk to Shannon, see what it is that they're doing at this yoga studio, why it worked better for me, and just why they've had so much success. But it was a really nice, fun, calm conversation that really, I think the bullet points were commitment and discipline. But I hope you enjoy this podcast. We recorded it in the hot yoga studio, so it's about 99 degrees as we're recording this podcast, looking out at the ski resort. So lovely time doing this episode. Shannon, thank you so much. Music today is brought to you by The Palms and Slender Bodies. The song you're listening to right now is called Levitate by The Palms, and you can find them on Instagram at The Palms Music, and you can find them on iTunes, Spotify, every single channel you can think of. And the song that will close out today's episode is Enemy by Slender Bodies. You can also find Slender Bodies on Instagram at Slender Bodies. And once again, anywhere and everywhere on the internet as well. So tune in, check them out. Great music. One last thing, this weekend, March 11th, we are hosting our Breathe event in Los Angeles. If you are interested in attending that event, please reach out to us. It looks like it's filling up pretty fast, and we are stoked about that, but we would love to have you. So if you are interested, check on in. All right. Much love, everybody. We'll see you at the top. Enjoy this podcast.
Yeah. But here we are. I'm just going to set the stage and paint the picture for everybody. We are in a 99-degree yoga studio right now.
I should turn down the heat.
No, I dig it. I actually tell people that I come here to get warm and to stretch, but to get warm first. Because I'm typically a freezing cold person. So now, beautiful studio. Right now we're not exactly looking out at the ski resort, but for much of the classroom you can peer out and see the ski resort the entire time. So it's like the perfect place to do yoga. So were you guys dreaming about having a studio here for a long time, or how did OutHere come to be? How did you get this spot, and how did you make it so perfect?
It started with my partner in OutHere Yoga, Laura Rust. Her family has summered and wintered here in Steamboat since she was a little girl. And about a year and a half ago, she had a dream. Like literally, she was dreaming that she was supposed to open a studio in Steamboat. And at the time, it seemed like an absolutely impossible, crazy concept, because Big Yoga, which Laura and my second partner in OutHere, Nancy, own in Houston, they have 2 locations there. They were getting ready to expand to Denver. So they were in the process and had committed to opening another big power yoga in Denver, and we're in the process of expansion. And so it seemed crazy to open another studio at the same time. And though Laura had this dream that she was supposed to, and we work a lot from vision and dream work and goal work in the type of yoga that we do. And she just knew that she was supposed to. And a couple weeks later, we started talking, and my husband and I, Dos, had this vision that we wanted to live in the mountains. We lived in Houston for 8 years and liked it. And though knew we were wanting a different way of life, a different lifestyle. So Laura and I happened to begin speaking about that. And she shared her vision and I shared my vision. And that's really where it started. About, I guess it was maybe 4 or 5 months after that, we all came up to Steamboat to check it out and see what was possible. And the space that we're sitting in now, that's now OutHere Yoga, was the pool hall space for the bar downstairs,
right.
McKnight's.
It's so funny.
So we walked into this space. We looked at several other conventional spaces, and my partner, specifically Laura, had, and they seemed like much more ready to walk into spaces to be a yoga studio. And she walked into this space and had a really good feeling about it. And then we met up with her and came and looked at it. And it was really different than it is now. You know, it was, there was red carpet everywhere. All the windows that existed were boarded up. So it was really dark. There was like this dark wood on the walls. It was perfect as a pool hall space for a bar. And something happened when both of us saw the space. I mean, it didn't look like it was going to be a yoga studio. We just knew it was it. And we had this vision to what now exists today. Like, we popped the roof line. So there was just these really small windows, sort of at ground level, and we popped the roof and created this huge window wall that's an indoor-outdoor studio, essentially, in the summer. And you know, all year long has this beautiful view of the mountains. So there's some sense of kind of being with nature, like we all love in Steamboat, and still being able to have it be in a heated room when it's sub-zero outside.
Well, I just learned something new. So you've only been in Steamboat for how long?
I've been in Steamboat I moved here last June, essentially June 1st. So not quite a year.
Totally local vibe. I mean, you could have told me 10 years.
Well, I'll take that as a compliment.
So that's awesome. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It's been, we just love Steamboat. You know, right away, I'm so grateful for how the community has welcomed us.
Yeah. And
I'll never forget the day before we were opening out here. I was at Walmart, and the gentleman checking me out, I was checking out with a bunch of just supplies for the studio we were frantically trying to open. This was on August 2nd, the day before we officially opened, and I was pretty, stressed out and checking out and trying to get all these things taken care of. And the gentleman at the Walmart checkout was like, "Another yoga studio? Isn't that the last thing that Steamboat needs? We've already got tons of yoga studios. The market's saturated." And I remember I left Walmart. I don't know why. It was just like a stressful time for me. And that guy shook my confidence, and I thought, oh my gosh, what if I moved here and put all my money and all my energy and gave up my really good corporate
He knows
job
everything. He must know.
Here. But it's funny, there's always the voices in your head and the voices from the outside that are telling you why you can't do something.
Yeah.
And it just speaks to the power of knowing the vision that you want and going for it regardless of what comes up.
Yeah, well, you're already hitting on a bunch of things that I would love to chat about that I'm way into myself, but dreams being the first one, I think it's amazing that this studio basically evolved out of a dream that ended up manifesting itself. So I guess with that, we can talk about dreams and manifestation and ways to do so, but then another thing that was said in this class the other day, or actually this morning, was your breath is the way to clear the chaos. And as you're doing yoga, you're so focused on the breath because otherwise you're focused on the pain or how difficult something may be. And I think you actually said it a few classes ago that the more difficult it is physically, the harder it is to think about the thoughts in your head or what's going. I had the quote written down somewhere, but basically it was the harder you're working, the less you're thinking for the most part. You're thinking just on one thing, more singularly. So that was kind of a rant on my behalf, but let's talk about yoga, manifesting your dreams and getting a clearer brain and achieving a clearer mindset and being able to, as your journal says out in the lobby, make shit happen. Yeah. I mean, let's be real. That's what it's all about. It's not just being able to touch your toes and do a back bend, right? So how has yoga helped you achieve those things? Clarity, manifesting dreams, managing stress like you just talked about. I would imagine there's tons of stress coming with opening a studio like this and having to teach all the time. So, however you want to take it, but I think there's something there.
Yeah, one thing that's an important distinction in the type of yoga, so we're a Baptiste style yoga studio, and Baptiste yoga was invented by Baron Baptiste. And one of the many reasons that I fell in love with it, Zach, is that it's so empowering in your physical practice, and then that just transcends and bleeds off into your life. And there's this there's this sense of our mind is constantly telling us what we can't do. There's a chatter that happens in our heads, and what we like to refer to as a small voice that tells you why something can't happen or tells you the logistical reasons why it doesn't make sense. And yoga is really a quieting of all of that. I think every form of yoga speaks to a quieting of the mind and a not being run by your thoughts, and knowing that there's something deeper in all of us. And specifically in Baptiste Yoga, we have a saying that is, you're already whole, complete, and perfect exactly as you are. And a lot of times we're searching I assume that the answer is external, that there's something I need. Like, I'll be ready to do it when I have more money, when I have more time, when I have more experience. And our specific philosophy in Baptiste Yoga is like, you are ready now, and that you already have everything you need to make your dreams happen. And any voice other than you knowing that isn't coming from like the center of you. And that work is so powerful. And I've seen even our practitioners who we've been open just over 8 months now, who have started brand new things coming out of different programs that we've done here, because they realize that they don't have to wait, that their life is happening right now and they can create whatever they want with exactly who they are right now.
Yeah, I mean, who you are is your gift, right? And it's like, otherwise, without that authenticity and uniqueness, it doesn't feel as real, right? I mean, authentic, real. So it's like, yes, it's already inside of you. You're ready to go. And for me, I mean, yoga was the first time I really understood what it meant to pay attention to your breath. I'll never forget the first time I did an actual yoga class, and I left just like, oh my God, I could actually relax, and I could just feel the change. But it was the first time I really realized what it meant to pay attention to my breath, and just the power alone of breathing, both for physical purposes. I use specific breathing techniques just for running and getting further. So it's the same thing as being in yoga, where you're in a pose, right? And it's really difficult, and you're talking about breathing into it. Well, there's the same exact transfer when it comes to endurance running or running far. You're going up a hill. Holy shit, this is really hard. I've been going up this hill for an hour now. But the more you focus on breathing, and specifically, maybe you could say about that, the Ujjayi breath, is that right?
Yeah, you're right, you got it.
That is the first thing I ever started doing with running to adapt the way I was breathing, was go back to that breath. And there's, without a doubt, I felt so much more powerful when I applied that to my running practice, that it really changed my total outlook on what was possible and how to break through tougher moments. And now we're getting to off the mat and off the trail, bringing that breath and calming into real life. And it's without a doubt certainly helped me. I mean, I probably would not be able to sit right here and have who knows how long this conversation will go, but a conversation or stand up and publicly speak or lead a class just like you do without ever harnessing my breath. Right? Because we forget to breathe, and it's like you essentially start hyperventilating when you forget to breathe. So I don't know. I mean, you're talking about seeing people outside of the classroom and them manifesting their dreams. I just think there's something massive behind the breathing, obviously, and yoga, and putting it all together, and it's super applicable outside the classroom too. Yeah,
I love that you bring breath into it. We're doing this program for people that have graduated. We have these challenges, 40-day challenges, and we're doing a program, like a team for people that have completed one of those challenges and just want to live their life where they're creating. And one of the ways we speak of it is like, lead your life one breath at a time. And there's breath is so interesting in that, we didn't create it ourselves. right? Like it's a gift that we were given, and it's the first thing, I always say, is the first thing you do when you're born, and the last thing you do before you die is your breath. And like there's this whole world of us being able to harness that power that we were given. And you're right that it's well said that it really changes all of it. It changes your thought patterns. It changes your fight or flight reaction to things. You realize, oh, just breathe. Like I'm not dying. This is just a big hill. This is just extended side angle for 20 breaths. Like I'm not dying, and it's really, I'm a big believer that the more you can put yourself in a face of resistance, and running is certainly an example of that, specifically distance running, and I believe our type of yoga, Baptiste yoga, does this as well. It's like the more you can put yourself in a space of facing some sort of challenge or resistance, and then you training your mind to react to that resistance instead of having a flip reaction. Can you allow your mind to settle and just be? And then all of a sudden what was once work and a challenge just becomes a new level of what you're able to sustain or what you're able to tolerate, and then you can climb from there.
Right. And it seems like that same challenge that's physically impeding is also very similar mentally, and just having these tools to take with you to whether it's starting your own business, going for a job interview, could be a date, could be whatever, then we've all had it. I mean, it's either a panic attack or a near panic attack, right? You go like numb in the limbs and you just feel, it's like, these are all things I feel like help. They're maybe not going to get rid of those situations, but it's going to reduce them, or at least tell you how, and help you move through them. And just starting with yoga and back to it all, breathing it's literally where I found the breath, and I think it's a great starting place for that. So yeah, yoga and the breath, amazing thing.
Yeah, just your ability to move forward into whatever is kind of fearful for you. I'll never forget it. This really cool gentleman, Juan, that I recently completed another training with, and he would just put his body in all these crazy scenarios. And my experience of him was, Juan is fearless, distinct from me who has fear. And we were talking about it one day, and he's like, I was like, I'm always scared. He's like, I just take a breath and then move into it. And that's what I realized, like, it wasn't that Juan had no fear and I had fear. We both had fear as a common denominator. And though it was Juan's way of being with and in the fear and moving forward into it that distinguished what he actually accomplished.
Totally.
And breath is undoubtedly the first step towards that. It's like, hey, if you're breathing, you're not dead. Like, you're okay.
Right. I mean, just like it was said today, I mean, without the breath, your practice, your day, nothing's going to happen. You can go without food, you can go without water. We've all heard that, but you can't go without your breath,
Yeah.
And, with the breath, it's the start of meditation. And I know you all do meditation class here 5 days a week.
Yes.
So are you doing a specific type of meditation? Is it Zen meditation? Is it this, that, or the other?
We're open to all of them, Zach. And typically the way with Baptiste style that we do is it's a body-based meditation. So there'll be a guided portion where we get you into your body, like you're feeling and noticing your fingertips touching, for example, or noticing in your seat what's actually touching the ground. Giving yourself some sort of physical markers to ground you, and then we'll leave an unguided portion where you're just silent, sitting up tall, eyes closed, and allowing whatever thoughts to come in to enter, and then allowing them to pass. And so that's typically the way we do it. And I'm by no means a meditation expert, and have done a number of different types, and I think that there's value in all of them. I like the idea of sitting quietly with nothing. That's why in our type of yoga oftentimes there's no music at all, because it's easier like if you can look at Instagram or if you can listen to a song or whatever, versus actually just having to be with your breath and yourself and seeing what's really there.
Well, it makes you a lot more mindful of everything that's going on physically, when I feel like when there's no music and all that external chaos going on. And I always twist things back to running, but I frequently get asked, do you listen to music when you're out there? And it's like, sometimes maybe, but very infrequently. And it's really because when you're listening to the music, that's just another thing going on. So now you have another external factor coming in, and maybe I don't like the song when I'm totally tired, so now I click the song, and now I'm changing the song 3-4 times. Now I'm focusing on the song, not on my body, which is what I should be focusing on.
Yeah.
So it definitely helps with the mindfulness to be able to limit as many external factors as possible and to really just tune into your body. So it really sounds like I need to take a meditation class here.
Yeah, you should.
But
yeah.
also, I thought it was important what you said about, like, you're certainly not a meditation expert. Because I think for some reason these things like yoga and meditation, they're hard to get into because it's almost always like some guru, and not to like be insulting, but like it's just some guru that is unrelated, unreachable to you, this or that, is teaching the class, and they're so expert or beyond expert that it's not even relatable for the beginner. And I think OutHere has done a beautiful job in specifically being accessible to the masses. And really, like, the younger demographic that is going to carry this forward for generations, So I think it's really neat that it's kind of a blend here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but between something spiritual and physical. Like, and I don't even know if that's right as I'm saying it, but by removing that real, I keep saying guru, but it's almost like this mystical thing, and bringing it to the normal, I think it really opens it up to a lot of people. So is that something you guys are trying to hit on here? Like, you're trying, you want to reach everybody, right? Is that?
Well, I firmly believe, and part of the reason I dedicated my life to this is that I think everybody needs yoga. And I specifically feel passionate about Baptiste yoga because of what it generates for you on and off your mat. And I do see, and I'm so glad to see, like, just a great mix of people that are longtime yoga practitioners, people that have never done yoga, who are scared, and they come in the door, young people that are 70 years old, everything in between, people that are athletic, people that maybe this is their first step into trying to do something athletic, and just everything in between, all different faith backgrounds. So I'm really proud of the diversity, and I think even more so the way that we all come together as a community. And there's such a sense of connection here, and I would love to take some credit for that. And actually, I give all the credit to the people coming. It's just a great mix of people, and there's something magical in. I didn't decide who would walk through the door. But the people that are like exactly the people I would want to spend my time with in yoga and outside of yoga. There's that has just really gone in a beautiful way for us. And I feel like that's all. I'm just grateful for that. And I do see that in our type of yoga, one thing I think that it's very authentic to our own personality. In the training that we lead, it's like we want you to be yourself, not to be like someone who's on a mountaintop spouting something off that may or may not be relatable to a person that lives in everyday world, in the United States. And so there is this great tradition of yoga that we pull for, that all of us, anyone who does yoga pulls from. And then there's also this sense of that most of our classes is mostly in English. It's not in Sanskrit, the traditional language for yoga, and so that there's just an accessibility to it right away. I see a lot of people come in who've never done yoga before, who like look around and then they come back the next day and then they're just kind of getting it. So there's this symbioticness of all of us practicing it together. not that there's any level of like perfection to achieve. It's more just like we're all doing it together and working on ourselves individually as a community. And I think in our style of yoga, it is really accessible to anyone that hasn't, doesn't know maybe like the secret handshake, so to speak.
Right, exactly.
Like there's no barrier of entry on it. There's really no barrier of entry. You could come in and have never done anything. You could come in and have done it for years in many different disciplines, and I think people take away something, and are put in a situation where they confront resistance and have to be powerful. And then there's that commonality that we've all done that together, and and it just kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah, I mean, the community here is definitely very welcoming. The first day I was here, I actually thought that I knew you, but clearly I didn't, because I wasn't even living here when you moved here. But I think that says a lot about the acceptance and the way that you're received when you come to this studio. So it really is. There's originally, when I wanted to talk to you on this podcast, I was going to talk just about community alone, because you really have ignited a community of 20-somethings and 30-somethings. But everybody's coming here. But I just couldn't believe how every single one of my friends was all of a sudden in this yoga class. So community is one thing, but how about commitment? I know you do a 40 days program here, and I know it takes time to make a real change and improvement. And I thought I heard you say the other day that 40 days is kind of the time frame that you feel like, I don't know if it was a personal opinion or if there's any sort of science backing this, but just from a commitment level and results, how have you found yoga to play a key role in those results?
I think we all want, on a superficial level, our natural instinct is just to want freedom and lots of choice. And I've found my greatest accomplishment and greatest personal growth in discipline and commitment and having structure. Our sequence, for example, in Baptiste yoga is a set sequence. And one of the reasons for that is because as you come back to that structure day in and day out, and you see the difference between what your wheel, for instance, looked like the first day you walked in the door and what it looks like when you've actually put in the work to be here 3-4 times a week, and 3 months later you see what comes from that discipline and commitment. And on and off the mat application, I see a lot of people like, I love the idea of like owning my own business and doing that. And like most of what it is hard work. And that's something I would tell anyone. Like there's the parts of it that I'm sure seem, I don't know, on some level like glamorous.
Right.
I guess, like I own my own business, I created it, there's people coming.
I don't have to report to people, but I got to report to myself.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of it is the hours that you clock. Like how, willing to do the grunt work, willing to sacrifice time away from other parts of your life to create something. It's requires. It's interesting. I oftentimes think of like someone showed me like a camera of like, this is how much you'll be working. Before I made this leap into it, I really oftentimes wonder, like, would I have said yes, looking at that from the outside? And from the inside, I undoubtedly say that I would, just because I see the change that it's making and what's being built here. And I would tell anyone that, back to your original question of like 40 days program of yoga or just like the 40 days of your life, like if you want to make something happen, it takes vision and it takes dreams, like we talked about, and where the rubber meets the road is the hours that you clock and the time and the work that you put into it. I think that's what ultimately has something go from an idea or a dream that you wake up from to really being manifested in the world. hard work.
Yeah, 100%. I like to say that it's commitment, discipline, and patience. And those are my 3 keywords for what's really helped me achieve anything. Has been commitment, discipline, and patience. And it's an important thing to remember, and I think yoga serves as a nice reminder for that. In this world where we get things so quickly, right? I mean, you can get a Big Mac in like 3 minutes. And it's just like we want everything so quickly. It's just like with any sort of diet, or I more or less think of them as lifestyles. But, someone might think it's, this, that, or the other in their diet that's making them feel that way, but you've only committed to ruling it out for 3 days and taking it out. Alcohol is always the easy one. Let's go coffee, though. Coffee, it's like you never realize what, it's not like coffee is some evil devil, but you don't even know what it's doing to you because you've been drinking it for so long until you come off the coffee and it's like, oh, okay, maybe it was dehydrating me. But it's not like you just come off for a day. You got to come off for a month. It's like the real detox takes time. So all of these things, the fitness, the nutrition, for me, the breath work, everything takes time. You can't just, in my humble opinion, 40 days seems like the bare minimum to making a change. So the commitment part is definitely real. Do you guys do anything? I know that in the 40 days program, you do something with nutrition as well. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, we do. There's a cleanse, and it's a 3-day cleanse. And it's around fruits and vegetables, and you can do it in a number of ways. You can do juicing would be the strictest way, like straight juicing for 3 days. And you can also do raw fruits and vegetables, or some version of cooking some, combining it with juicing. There's a couple of different ways that you do it. And I've done a lot of cleanses, and every time it teaches me something. And the thing I learned, I related so much to what you just said, is that, oftentimes it's like, oh, I need this, like I need coffee. And you're putting it in, and then it's like really to get the answers you need. It's not to put more in, it's to actually clear it out and then see without any of it, where you're at. And I think that we also just one of the keys to my freedom and stepping away from the corporate security that I had and success I had in the corporate world was letting go of material possessions.
I'm so happy you said that. I'll jump back to it. Please
it's
continue.
like, I really believe that is the key to your freedom. Mm-hmm. Like if you want to go and start something and live the life you want to live, the first step towards that is letting go of a need for material possessions.
They're anchors.
They are.
Parachutes.
It's almost like someone said it once, and I can't recall who it was, Zach, but like a hedonistic treadmill, where it's like you just working harder and harder to get more things, and then you need to work harder to keep those things. And it's really liberating. Dos and I moved here, like we're in a little studio apartment, stripped away all of our stuff, and it gave us the freedom to not have to worry about, okay, we're taking on these entrepreneurial ventures. Will they make enough money? Well, if you don't need a lot of money, it doesn't matter, and you're freed up from that to really create from a space of, generating what it is that you want to bring to the world. And then in my experience, at least thus far, like being supported financially will come from you doing the good things that you want to see happen in the world. And the first step is just like not needing a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, just don't need a lot. Like you don't need that much, and use your unique authenticity to add value, and then the money will come. But I was really giggling when you said the material things and stripping them away, and because I just started getting like that over the last 2 years, which is where in the last years is when I've also found ultra running, and it's just blowing my mind how far you can really go and do things. But it holds you back so much when you have all these extra things, especially you're not even using anyways. And I hit this point this past summer when I was living in LA that I literally drove my vehicle to like the big dumpster where it's like the recycle your clothes, drop, and got rid of everything but about 5 t-shirts, my obviously my backpacking and running gear, and all those material possessions that I was just lugging around with me for who knows long. I mean, I've probably gone through like 5 moves with a couple boxes, and I'm just like, what am I doing with this stuff? And just incredibly liberating when you get rid of all that stuff. You're able to focus up on what really matters, and that's where the liberation, that's the freedom, right? Is having clarity and direction. So really neat that you hit on that. So what were you doing before you got into yoga?
I was in banking
Okay.
for most of my life. I worked at both as like in graphic design and marketing, and then in banking, and then most recently had combined those two. I was working for a bank and doing product development and launching products for a bank. And it was actually a great job. I by all accounts, I mean, it was just, as far as working for a big company, they were a great company to work for. The freedom they gave you was pretty impressive. Getting to work with teams and create things was great. And though I just had that voice inside of me that said that you're supposed to go and do yoga. You know, it's basically what it was. And it started off as a really quiet voice, but then as I listened to it more, it got louder and louder to the point that I couldn't ignore it. And so it's interesting. It's like, I wonder, I think we all have that voice, but it's like you can silence it. And I silenced it for many years just because I kept getting promoted and making more money.
Making more money.
And living what was seemingly, by all accounts, I feel like that you see in most, the way we represent it, the American dream. You know, it was financially successful, able to buy whatever I wanted, had a good title,
right?
Was continuing to be promoted, and I realized, you know, if I keep getting promoted and I get my boss's job and my boss's boss's job and my boss's 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 job, when I finally get to the top of that ladder and peer out over the other side, will I have done what I believe I was sent here to do? And it was an easy answer, no. So, you know, then there's the work of like climbing down the ladder and starting from the beginning again and not really having anything. And though, you know, setting your path in the direction that you feel like you're supposed to, like what you want to leave as a legacy and what you want to contribute.
Wow, that's awesome. So were you doing yoga, were you practicing yoga during that whole time as well?
Yeah.
Like,
so
how long have you been doing this?
I've been seriously practicing this type of yoga for about 7 years, teaching it for somewhere between 4 and 5 now, and I was teaching the entire time. Most of the time I was working for the bank. It was like my side gig.
Right, that's where I was getting. That's really impressive.
Yeah.
You've got a lot to give.
I mean, I always loved it and I always looked forward to it and was really kind of daydreaming about it, you know, when I was in my regular, real, quote unquote, real job. Yeah. To the point where I just realized I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do, you know. Right. And that job was such a good job. I mean, I believe that there are some people that is their calling. It just wasn't mine, you know.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, your calling is clearly to gather people and bring them to a greater place, which is OutHere Yoga.
Thank you.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's obvious. Like, I'm sure you were doing great in the banking world, but this is a rocket ship for Steamboat, the way I feel like, you know. And it's going back to that comment that you got from somebody at Walmart. I think it's so funny. It's like people are already doing all of these things, but nobody is doing it your way, you know. And I think that's when that comment was made that the yoga market in Steamboat is flooded. Well, of course there's a zillion yoga studios in a ski town, right? But this is the first Baptiste yoga studio, and it's the first one that I have ever seen my friends at. And that's not a knock to other studios. I've had great classes too. I'm just saying there's a uniqueness in everybody's approach, and it's obvious here.
Yeah, I'm grateful that we filled a niche. You know, all the studios in Steamboat are really special. I think they all bring something truly unique, and there's an audience for all of it. And I'm grateful that within that already elevated space of yoga, that, you know, we found found a place and a niche, and
Yeah.
that people are wanting to call us home. It means the world to me.
And it's good for everybody. There's more of a variety now, you know? It's like
Yeah.
if I don't want to do a bunch of chaturungas,
Yeah,
maybe I'll go
probably
somewhere
don't want to
else.
come to my studio. I'd
Like-
steer you elsewhere.
No, that's true. I mean, I think I might have said it at the beginning of this class, but it's like, it can be so cold here in the winter that I'll be at home and I'm cold, right? And then I'll get out of the shower and I'm still cold. I'm like, whoa, where can I go get warm? I know I can go get warm out here in yoga.
Yep.
Get a sweat on it and get nice and warm, that's for sure. So just, does your husband do yoga then?
Yeah, he does. You know, it's funny. The first time he came to one of my classes, we had a fight, and I wasn't speaking to him. And I think he realized the only way that we were gonna. This was before we were engaged, or we just started dating basically. And he realized I better go take our yoga class if I'm gonna make this. And then I felt like I had to talk to him after that.
Yeah.
So it worked out well. But he's interesting. Like, he was someone who just didn't really buy into yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I'm excited to see, and I've seen with our demographic, almost nearly 70% of our new students are men.
Oh yeah.
And
there's plenty of dudes in this class for sure.
yeah, and I think that something like 30% of our overall membership is male now, and I love to see that. There's so Dose, my husband, he was like, when we opened this studio, he's like, okay, I'm gonna have to start practicing yoga more. Like, this is what you're dedicating your life to. And he did that, and he completed his first 40 days program with us, and then he's a mountaineer, and he took a 4-day expedition and was climbing, and he's done that many times and come back each time like full of spirit and physically pretty broken. And he came back and he said, after doing yoga and climbing, the next day I was a little bit sore, and that's it. And he said, now I'm a believer in this. And one of the cool things we've seen for men and women is how it's really, especially in Steamboat, with how athletic people are outside here, how it's really complementing and helping to increase their athletic performance in all areas of what they do. And you're speaking to that in running, and people tell me that with biking and skiing and snowboarding and all the things. Like, what a difference it makes, which is cool to see.
I mean, just the way it increases your mobility is insane. I mean, there's a couple ladies in this class that blow my mind, that are of the older demographic, and that are like standing on their heads, maybe just handstanding. And it just blows my mind. So I mean, the continual practice will certainly help with your mobility and athleticism. And it's interesting you say that about your husband Dose, because as I said at the beginning, when I came back to Steamboat just a little over a month ago, my hips were so tight, and I was stretching on my own and doing what I thought was adequate stretching and loosening of my muscles and everything. But it didn't really happen until I came here and went through with it the first week. After the first week, I think I had done 3 or 4 classes here, and my hips totally released, and I started running again. And I mean, I was crippled. I pushed it so hard last year that I couldn't even run. My IT bands were so tight. So last night's class was great.
Oh, yeah.
But the continual practice of yoga throughout last month, and obviously going forward, total believer now. And I mean, I've always done yoga, but just when it was convenient, pretty much. So once again, falling back, maybe the theme of this podcast is commitment, clearly, because it took a month of commitment, but I feel better than ever right now. And I'm talking about planning these big runs, and it's all this stuff that at the end of 2017, I was worried about in my head, that conversation in my head that we were talking about, that I wasn't gonna be able to do. So I'm super thankful for OutHere Yoga, this class. And the point of this podcast was to get more people interested in yoga, and especially, guys, girls, whatever, but for guys, there's the beginner is, you do your own thing. You can make the modifications, come to class. No one's expecting you to do a handstand your first day, but it's gonna open you up physically and mentally, I believe. So
Yeah, that's great to hear what a difference it's made in your running. That's really cool, Zach.
Yeah. So, I mean, any last words for our lovely microphone here?
Only that I'm grateful for your time and that you would want to feature us on your podcast, and grateful for people like you coming to our studio and making it what it is.
Yeah.
And just appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
And you know what I forgot to even mention is that maybe at some point we're doing our first Breathe class this week in LA. So I'm headed out to Los Angeles this weekend.
Oh, that's huge.
We're doing it is huge. So I'm really excited about that. And obviously we talked a lot about breathing on this podcast. So maybe sometime down the road I would love to introduce it to you. Have you ever done holotropic breath work?
I haven't, no.
Oh my gosh, it's next level.
I'm excited to see that. Yeah, we'll have to talk about collaborating, us going out there, you guys coming here.
Yeah, I think it would be amazing. Have my counterpart, Mr. Starbuck, come out this way. He runs the classes, and I kind of just direct the whole thing. But this will be our first one in a big studio, and what you could expect is a lot of loud, probably Odessa or good tunes.
Got it.
It's not your traditional breathing or meditation class. It's definitely unique, and
that sounds really cool.
With our own, there's no, you're not sitting lotus and in front of a guru. We're blasting tunes in your ears, and we're hoping that it's really accessible. So.
Yeah, I love that. That's so exciting. It's really cool to see you taking something that is often a blind spot for people, breath, in their life, and certainly even in their yoga practice. To bring that in an accessible, fun, unique way. I think that's an incredible idea, and wish you guys all the success.
Thank you.
I love collaborating with businesses on what we can create together, so let me know how I can help you guys out. That's really cool.
I think
Congrats.
it's gonna be awesome. All right, well, high five, and thank you so much for an awesome conversation. Really looking forward to many more classes here, and hopefully for everybody listening, you go find your own Baptiste Yoga Studio or whatever type of yoga you're into, but go do something to open yourself up physically and mentally.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you.
I've been drowning in an anemone. You'll never get the best of me. I've been drowning in an anemone. Down below, steady like the ocean flow, quiet like I like it. Yeah, I'll never be alone. I pause my life, I spend my time. He's always right, it's never wrong to try. It's been alright, I've been alright. But it's better, I hear better. I like it better underwater. Set me underwater.